Hey, welcome to this week's show of Hired How to Get the Jobs Weekly Review. Over the next 30 minutes, we're going to be giving you a quick federal update on the unemployment federal benefits that's going on. We're talking a little bit about the top mistakes I saw from clients in August and how you can avoid some of those mistakes that I've had to coach people through, and also how to get the recruiter to be your advocate versus being against you. We all think when we go into a recruiting process that the recruiter is naturally on our side, they're a nice person, but guess what? They're a cog in the wheel and they're a process and you have to get past them. But more often than not, you are going to trip yourself up if you're not aware of the power they actually have in the process, even though they have the least amount of authority. So we'll talk about that. And then as always, we'll get to your questions and I'll answer them. So if you do have any questions, make sure you go to those questions, you ask those questions on the comment box. I always make sure I prioritize live questions over the ones I've discussed with clients throughout the week, because most of the time the questions I'm going to be discussing that I already have here are ones I've actually answered for clients, but I thought you might benefit from. So with that, please be sure to give me a thumbs up too if you like this content, and share it. So now let's talk a little bit about who I am. I write a blog called How to Get the Job. I have been a recruiter for 15 years, staffing recruiting manager for most of that, and also an executive recruiter for a couple of years where I work with C-suite level executives. I have a passion for coaching people and helping people. So that naturally led me, when COVID-19 happened, to really working on the side to help coach people on resume writing, interviewing, and doing those sort of things. So if you like any of this content, be sure also to subscribe to my YouTube channel, because that's where you're going to find all of these videos, 30 plus videos like this and others, short and long, where there's a lot of material on there. So if you're in the job search, you might benefit from checking out some of that content from time to time. So let's give you your first federal update. Federal update right now. So when we last left, if you remember, when we last left, we talked a little bit about how Congress wasn't doing anything. And even though I'm not a fan of executive orders, President Trump did something smart politically. He created an executive order to use money that he had in emergency relief. And he said, I'm going to give $300 in unemployment benefits and federal unemployment benefits weekly to people, and the state can give $100. So we're going to do a $400 installment to each individual on unemployment. We fast forward. It actually looks like the vast majority of the states are getting the $300. Okay, I'll give you a list of states which have not yet applied for it or are not in the process, but the vast majority of states are getting $300. And there's actually a couple of states which have actually are giving $400, meaning the federal government's giving the $300 and the state's giving an additional $100 to give a full $400 to each person who's on unemployment per week. But the Department of Labor figured out a way that the states didn't have to do that at the end of the day. So most states are just allowing for the federal government to give you $300 versus an additional $100. But the states that are getting $400 from, there's 5 of them. It's Montana, Kansas, Kentucky, West Virginia, and Vermont. If you live in one of those states, your unemployment benefits went up another $400 from just the state fund amount. If you don't hear your state named, you're already getting the $300. So the ones that are not going to apply is Nebraska. Hasn't applied, they're not going to apply, so you're still just on the state unemployment numbers. South Dakota's not going to apply, and then looks like Delaware, District of Columbia, Illinois, Kansas, and New Jersey, they are going to apply for that additional $300. And then Nevada, South Carolina, and Wisconsin, they have applied, and their application's in the process of being approved. So bottom line, you have a potential to be getting an extra $300 in unemployment, or $400 if you're lucky enough to live in one of those other states. But that's kind of your federal update. Again, I'll always say, look, I'm not a fan of executive orders, but I do believe in this situation, COVID-19 has caused the government to shut down businesses. And whether you agree with that move or not, the government has decided to do that. And if they can't allow you to work where you are working, then they need to help rectify that. And I'm glad that we're still seeing some benefits from that. So now let's talk about the most common mistakes that I have seen from my clients in August. And this will be just resumes this week. This is all we'll do. Usually I do an unemployment numbers benefit discussion, unemployment discussion at the beginning of the month, but they're not out yet. So that'll be next week. But let's talk about the top 6 things that I saw wrong on resumes this past month. First, I've done videos on this. If you know me, you know I've always said the resume is not the place to be humble, okay? We are not humble on our resume. We use the interview to be humble, but we don't use the resume to be humble. I am seeing a lot of people who are struggling to brag on themselves. These resumes are reeking with humility. Now, I love humble people, but not in your resume. It doesn't read well. Humility in a resume reads like an unaccomplished person. It just does. Use the interview to be bragging on your team. Use the interview to disperse your praise. Make sure that's in the interview. So when they say, hey, you really cut costs by 32%. Yeah, I did it with my team. I have a great team. I was able to lead them and do this. But see, I still took credit for it, but I'm also making sure that my team gets credit, because that just sounds better in an interview. And it makes me know what kind of leader you're going to be. Are you going to be the one that's going to be stealing credit from your people? Or are you going to be the one that's going to be building them up around you? But that's not on the resume. The resume is the time to say, cut costs by 32%. Now, let's go to the, I'll pull us right into the second thing that I saw a lot of people were making mistakes with this past month. And you might be doing this. You might have a great bullet, okay? But you're going to say something like, I partnered with other business units to increase revenue by 15%. Great if I read the whole bullet. But guess what? I scan resumes, and the average recruiter spends 10 to 15 seconds scanning a resume. If I scan a resume, am I scanning the front part of the resume of each bullet, or am I scanning the back part of the bullet? I'm scanning the front part of each bullet. So if the front part of the bullet says, partnered with other business units, I may never actually see your accomplishment. I'm going to scan it and go, okay, move on. But if I see saved 32% or grew revenue 18%, I'm probably going to read the rest of that statement. But you need to prioritize the information in your bullet so that I actually read it, right? Because we've all been there where we scan things and we don't really pay attention, or we don't really clue in, but you want me to clue in on the important stuff. And just like I tell people, when we're building your resume, you want to prioritize the most important bullets on the top. And the way you do that is the job you're applying for. Any bullet you have in your past that's relevant to the job you're applying for, you make sure that's the top of each section of your resume in those certain company blocks. But then you also need to prioritize the information inside the bullet to make sure that the information about you that you want me to see is at the front of the bullet, because I'm not scanning the back of the bullet, and I may never see the back of the bullet, and I rarely read an entire bullet. And I am not, often I'll tell you on these videos and these times that I am, unlike many people, I am very much like every recruiter in this regard. We don't read a resume line by line. So make sure the information's on the front. Next, remove the extra words. I do a video called Character Counts. It's on YouTube. Great time to do a little quick plug. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. I do a video called Character Counts. And what that's talking about is, on your resume, the characters matter. The number of spaces, the number of words, the number of letters, those all matter. And you need to make sure that you are putting those in a way, that you're removing the extra words. So for example, if your resume bullet starts with something like partnered with, or primarily responsible, directly managed, why not just say responsible? Because if you say primarily responsible, you're saying the same thing as responsible for blah, 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 blah. But by saying primarily responsible for, you're wasting 9 characters, okay? The word primarily, I believe, is 9 characters. Directly managed, a team of 17 people. Why don't you say manage a team of 17 people? By saying directly, that's 8 characters. That might make you bleed over to another line. And if you bleed over to another line, then you're not being sensitive to the space on your resume. And while we're on this topic, get rid of periods. Periods on bullets are worthless, in my opinion. You are not writing sentences. You are writing fragments of sentences at best, right? It should start with a verb, often a past tense verb if it's a previous role, and then it finishes with your accomplishment. It shouldn't be primarily responsible for 18 people in this, this, and this, period. You've just wasted a whole bunch of space. And frankly, if your sentence ends up being 1 word extra, I would probably change responsible or managed to the word led, because now I'm using 3 letters versus 8 letters or 9 letters. So use all the words that are available to you and make sure that you're using your space wisely. So we got rid of periods. We're making sure that we're using space wisely. We're making sure that we're leading with our accomplishment. We're not leading with somebody else. We're not being humble on our resume. Next, we got two more things. Job description bullets. Let's get rid of most of them. Okay. A job description bullet is directly accountable towards customer satisfaction, or responsible for growing revenue in 2019, or answer phones. These are tasks. If you look at your resume and you see a bunch of tasks, there should be one task for every 3 accomplishments. It's a 75-25% split, in my opinion. And remember, everything I tell you is my opinion, but I believe that if your resume has 75% accomplishments, where instead of saying, you know, responsible for growing revenue in South America, how about you say I grew revenue in South America by 22% in the last quarter. And then you can add some extra information to make it 2 lines. That's perfectly fine. Tell me how you did it. But don't just say responsible for growing revenue in South America, because I don't know if you actually did it. I know you're responsible for growing revenue in South America, but did you actually accomplish it? Were you any good at it, or are you just terrible? So make sure that you actually lead with your accomplishments. And remember, if I'm only scanning a resume, the reason why you want 3 good accomplishments for every 1 job description, because you want a 75% chance that I'm going to land on one of your accomplishments when I'm only scanning it for 10 seconds. All right. And then the last thing, if it doesn't matter what you like. What I mean by that is, and this happens more with my clients who are VPs, presidents, and C-suite executives. They have really, over time, developed an opinion about how they like to read information. But it doesn't matter how they like it, okay? I am not picking the font of Times New Roman because I like the font Times New Roman. I am picking it because it allows me to condense the most amount of characters on a line. I can put more words in Times New Roman on a line than I can with any other font out there. And it looks professional. That's why we're picking Times New Roman. I don't care that you like a different one. It's not about you. Now, you're my client. So at the end of the day, if you want something, I'm going to tell you, here's why I think we shouldn't do it this way. It's your resume. You can do it how you want. But that's just my opinion. Make sure that you're doing things like with a purpose, okay? Just like when you're in a company, we do things with a purpose in our job. We should do things with a purpose when we're trying to get a job. All right? All right, let's move on to how to get the recruiter to be your advocate. Now, this trips up a lot of people because we all assume that when we're recruited, when we talk to somebody, they're really nice, so we can be ourselves and we can let our guard down. But guess what? They're a recruiter. They're in sales. They're trying to sell you on moving to a new location to start a job. They're trying to sell you on leaving your old company and coming to this company. A recruiter is a salesman or saleswoman. So yes, they're going to be nice, and they should be. But don't take that as, okay, now they're my buddy and I can tell them everything I want to tell them, because guess what? It will bite you. They're not your advocate. Here's the truth. I believe the recruiter is has the least authority probably in the process of people you're going to speak with, but they have the most power. Let me say that one more time. I think the recruiter has the least authority in the company out of the people you're interviewing with, but they have the most power in your interview process. And what I mean by that is not just because they're the gatekeeper for bigger and better things, but they're going to be the one at the end of the process when they're sitting down with the hiring manager that says, okay, well, we got these 3 candidates. What do you think? And I'm going to be able to say, well, I talked to 85 people, even though you only talked to 3. And let me tell you about where these 3 people stack amongst the rest of the field. Either let's toss them all out, or let's actually move forward with this person, and here's why. So how do we make this recruiter, how do we make them your advocate? First, make the recruiter's life easy. Okay, I don't mean be a yes man or a yes woman. I mean interview times. If I give you 3 options for an interview, if I call you up, now this only really applies if you applied to the job. Okay, if you didn't apply to the job, I'm not talking to you. If you were headhunted by a recruiter, I'm not talking to you. But if you applied to the job, I'm talking to you. If I'm looking at your application, I'm looking at your resume, and I give you a call and I say, Joe, hey, Tony Martin here, how to get the job. Thanks so much for applying. I'm trying to set up an interview with you. Are you available today at 2 o'clock? No, I'm not. Okay, how about tomorrow at 9 a.m.? No, I'm not. How about tomorrow at 3 p.m.? No, I'm not. How about Friday at 4 p.m.? Well, I try to get early start on the weekends. Look, forget it. I don't care about you enough to move you forward. If you're already difficult for me to schedule a simple phone screen, how do I think you're going to be for every step of the process, especially when I need to put you up in front of that VP 3 weeks from now when I'm trying to advocate on your behalf? Am I really going to believe you're going to be able to make the appointment? So make their life easy, and not just with interviews. Filling out forms. Often I'd be sending people forms. I'll send them a form to fill out for a background check or something like that. And after 2 days, nothing. And I'll call them and I'll be like, Steve, what happened? Steve's like, well, I couldn't get a printer. I'm working on it, Tony. I'm like, look, truthfully, I don't care about your problems. I care about you and I care about your problems. But if you can't get a form filled out, I'm not sure working for us in the 21st century is going to be helpful, is going to work. I don't need to know about the litany of problems and tasks in order for you to accomplish something simple, because what does that mean to me? It means that I'm analyzing you. And the moment I think I'm going to hire you, you're going to be difficult on every task. Because if it's just this difficult to get something like this done, then I can't imagine how convoluted it's going to be to analyze the global pay scale for the company or whatever task you're going to have as a professional in the job you're applying for. So be a problem solver, not a problem bringer, throughout your entire career, but also in the recruiting process. Sending certs. I've told people, send me a copy of your driver's license. 2 days later, well, I don't have a scanner. Like, dude, I told you 2 days ago. Like, can you take a picture with your phone? Oh yeah, I can take a picture with my phone, and then I get it right away. Like, come on, people. So make my life easier as a recruiter, and I'll be a better advocate for you. Next, 2 more things, and then we'll get to your Q&A. So remember, if you have questions, get them ready. Be sensitive about time, not just about being sure you're on time to an interview. That's important, but just as important is during the interview. Okay, when you're interviewing with me or with somebody else, understand that I have a certain amount of questions I need to get through. And if we're 7 minutes into the interview and the only thing I asked you is, did you find the building okay? We're gonna have a problem, because I haven't gotten to any of my questions yet, and that was more of an icebreaker than an actual question. And you start going into the soliloquy, how you came yesterday and you scoped it out. That's great, I love it, but guess what? I need to get to my real questions, and that's not my real one. So pick up on the fact that if your interviewer is doing this, what am I doing? I'm not making eye contact. If I'm not making eye contact with you, land your plane. Finish the question and move on, okay? Pick that up. Self-awareness is so important. And when we're interviewing on Zoom, we're looking at our screen more than we're looking up here. Look at the camera, glance down at the screen, but make sure you're trying to make eye contact like I'm trying to do during this discussion, okay? Engage the people you're speaking with, okay? So, but make sure that you are aware of the length of interview questions. If you're going too short, you're probably gonna get a whole bunch of follow-up questions, okay? If I ask you to tell me about a time when you did something and it takes you 30 seconds, then I ask you 18 more follow-ups, you probably can go longer on the next answer. But if I ask you to tell me about a time and I'm disengaging with you after 3 minutes and I'm looking down, I'm like, all right, next question. Or I give you the verbal cues of, hey, I only got 5 minutes left. We gotta get through these next 3 questions. That means be quick, okay? Well, now last question I'll say, research the company to get me to be your advocate as a recruiter. Research the company better than I've researched the company. That's probably not possible, but to the best of your ability, research the company. Know more about my company than I would ever expect you to imagine you to know. Because that, at the end of the process, like we talked about, when this whole thing is over, I am gonna sit down with the hiring manager. And the hiring manager is gonna ask me who I like the best. And it may not matter who I like the best. But when they say who you like the best, and I say, well, I kind of like Russ the best, and here's why. Joe and Mike, they were nice, but truthfully, dude, Joe couldn't figure out how to work a scanner. It took him 3 days to get me a cert. And Mike, we had to reschedule his interview 4 times because we could. So I am going to be able to influence who gets hired. So even though I have the least amount of power or the least amount of authority, I probably have the highest amount of power in the recruiting process. Now, let us get to questions. We are 4 minutes late. I have to get better. I always think I'm going to go short and then I'm going to fill a bunch of time, and I want to make sure your time is valuable, and I appreciate you watching. So I've been going late long, so I'm sorry about that. So let me see. Let me read this question. Okay, I am looking. I don't see, no problem at all. I don't see any questions, which is not an issue. Great. So let us move here to questions. So first question I got this week was from Josue. Josue lives in Cyprus, and where should he put his skills section on his resume? Now, I had a good conversation with Josue, but this is for everybody. Your skills section on the resume should probably go in the trash. And I mean that sincerely, okay? I am not a big believer that your skill section is probably relevant. You're gonna have words in there like project management, I can't even think of a couple right now, but leader, time-oriented. Like, come on, dude. Like, on a scale of 1 to 10, I don't know if you're a 10 out of 10 on project management or a 2. I just know you know the words. And on your entire resume, I don't see you being a leader once. So how can I expect you to be a strong leader? Your skills section, which is really just usually like 3 columns of maybe 3 words, 3 words, and 3 words. That's really valuable, in my opinion, for engineers and computer people who have specific softwares that they've worked with and specific computer programs they've worked with. But it's not relevant for most other people. I would much rather you turn your skills section, make sure every single one of those words is represented in a bullet below. But what about the applicant tracking system? I heard the applicant tracking system has an algorithm that's pulling out keywords. And yes, as long as that word is in a bullet, it's still going to pull it out, okay? And if you lead with it, then it's probably going to be just as valuable and more valuable because it's going to tell me that you're actually good at something versus just knowing a word. Christine just asked, Christine, skill section for certification. I say no, Christine. I believe you could put education, training, and certifications all in the same thing on the bottom of your resume. It should be on the bottom if you're more than 5 years of experience. If you just graduated college, put the education on top because probably the biggest accomplishment you've had. But if you're out of school for more than 5 years, you probably have more professional accomplishments. And my personal opinion is, Christine, you put it on the bottom of the resume, and then that way it can show some progression. So I see you got your bachelor's degree in 2002. I see you got your master's in 09. And then I see you got a PMP in 15. And I see you got something else in 19. I see a continuing progression of education and certifications. Everybody is different for sure, Christine. So make sure that you, feel free to send me your resume, Christine, and I'll let you know what I think about it. And I won't pull any punches, and I'll be polite, but I'll make sure your time is valuable. Tamer, it should be 1 page. No, Tamer, false. Now, I don't know your background. I don't know how many years of experience you have, but a resume should not be 1 page. A resume should be 1 page if you're a brand new college graduate and you've only had a couple of part-time jobs. But if you've done 30 years of a career, I cannot imagine your resume being 1 page. Now, here's the rules for resume. You don't repeat bullets. Even if you did the same thing in this job and the last job, you don't repeat them, okay? So that way, every bullet is a standalone, neat, individual accomplishment that's unique, okay? Step 1. Step 2, you make sure that the bullets that are there are directed to the position you're applying for. Look, I was a KC-130 navigator in the Marine Corps. That's it right over there. I have it on my long resume, but if I'm applying to a company, I am probably not keeping that KC-130 navigator experience, even though it was super cool and I used a sextant and we didn't have GPSs way back then. I used the sun and the stars, angles off the horizon. It's not relevant to be a staffing and recruiting manager, unfortunately. So I'm probably not going to have it on my resume, or I might just have 1 line versus 7 lines of bullets. But Tamer, as long as, if you have 10 years of experience, how many jobs have you had? Have you had progression in those companies? Because maybe you were at Schlumberger and you went for 2 years, 2 years, 2 years, and you've had 5 jobs in 1 company over 10 years. Then you need to have 2 years, 2 years, or 2 bullets, 2 bullets, 3 bullets, 5 bullets. It just depends. But Tamer, send me your resume and let me actually see if this might not actually go out, but 626@outlook.com. I'm sending my email right here. But you can certainly take a look at my LinkedIn or page to get my contact information. Make sure that you are on my Facebook page, Hired How to Get the Job. You can get my contact information there. Let's set up a resume consult. Christine and Tamara, I look forward to talking to you guys. Steven, good resumes lead to interviews. Oh, thanks, Steven. Hey, let me put Steven's comment up here because I think I'm going to try to put Steven on my Facebook show tomorrow. We're going to try to figure out, but Steven got his offer today. Great guy, great HR professional. Sorry you all missed out on hiring him. But Steven, you're fantastic. And I'm not surprised it took you only a few weeks to get picked back up. So well done. All right. Moving on, no new live questions, so we'll keep going here. Sarah in Boston this week, she asked me, how do you answer the question, what do you want to make? Fundamental question you are going to get asked 9 times out of 10 in the phone screen, and if you say I'm open, you will not get a second interview, most likely, okay? Here's why. I have 1,000 today in COVID-19 world candidates that I need to get through. There is going to be a handful that are going to give me a number inside the window of my budget. If you say I'm open, that just means I have no idea. I don't know if you're inside or outside, so am I really going to subject my clients, my VPs, the hiring process? Am I going to, all those hiring managers, am I going to make them meet with you to give you an offer you're going to reject because you told me you're open? Because in my experience over 15 years, open means I have a number, but I don't want to say it first because he who throws the first number out loses. Listen, you need to give a number. So here's how you go about what do you want to make things. First of all, it's illegal in some states. I say first of all. So I've transitioned, Stephen will laugh at this. I've transitioned from with that to now first of all. So I think I always have a catchphrase that I can't quite nip in the bud, and it's annoying. But when it comes to the salary question, some states can't ask you what you're currently making. I often, if someone says, what are you looking to make? And you feel uncomfortable, you're unprepared, I would just say what I'm making right now or what I made at my last job. If that's what I'm looking to make, that's what I made at my last job. Now, if you know that your last job was a VP and you're hiring for a manager, and well, then you need to figure it out. But here's how you do it, okay? When you're interviewing, before you're interviewing, you apply to the job. After you have applied to the job, you go to 4 websites. I'm going to give them to you 3 times so you don't forget. Indeed, Glassdoor, salary.com, payscale.com. Indeed, Glassdoor, salary.com, payscale.com. One more time. Indeed, salary.com, payscale.com, Glassdoor. You go to those 4 websites and you try to research what that company is paying its people in that role. Each site has different formatting, but you can figure it out. You're going to get all of these different numbers, and you're going to get one number says 36,000, one number says 30,000, one number says 45,000, one number says 52,000, but you can kind of create an idea of where you think the number should be. So when you get the question, what are you looking to make? Here's what you say. Well, I've done a lot of research, and from what I can tell, this role should pay somewhere about $95,000. And from what I can see on the job description, that seems accurate. Am I on target? Now, what you have done is you have not given a range, Christine. You do not want to give a range. If you give a range and you say, well, I'm open to anything from 80 to 100, why am I going to give you 100? You probably want 90, right? I'm open to 80 to 100. You're like thinking, well, 90 is what I want. Then say 90 is what you want. Because I hear she will accept 80. So we're going to give her 82.5. She's going to be happy. We're not at the bottom of a range. We're going to be happy because we budgeted this thing at $100,000. But now we've saved some money, and there's room for Christine to grow and continue to progress in in the organization and keep on getting salary bumps for the next 2 or 3 years. Don't give a range unless it's really small. Stick to, my research shows me this job should pay this much. I think that's accurate. What do you guys think? Because here's the other thing it does at the end of the day. When at the end of the process, when you get the offer and they offer you and you said, look, I think it should pay $90,000. That seems reasonable from what I can tell. Is that accurate? They might tell you some information at that point. But then at the end, when you get an offer for $90,000, you can rebut it. You can say, I was actually looking for 95. And they go, well, what do you mean? You said 90. Well, actually, I wasn't looking for 90. You asked me what I thought the job, what I was making or what I was looking for. I said I thought the job should pay 90. But over the last month, I've talked to 4 people, and the P&L responsibility is actually $500,000, not $10,000 like I thought. I have a team of 18 where I thought I had a team of 5. I have this and that. The job isn't exactly what's in the job description, so I think it's more of a $95,000 a year job. This gives you a comfortable way to continue to negotiate without turning them off. Okay, so let's see. Great work today. Oh, thanks, Russ. I appreciate it. Okay, so we got time for one more question. Oh, Christine, again, I will take you again. And if you want to hear the rest of the questions from from this week too, feel free to check out Facebook tomorrow. Facebook tomorrow, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. Hired, how to get the job. But Christine will close us out. How do you not look overqualified on your resume? Well, it depends what you're applying for, Christine. If you're applying to a job, and I don't know you, You look fairly young on your picture, but based on your question, I'm going to assume that you have more than 10 years of experience. If you're applying to a job that an 18-year-old can do, then guess what? You're overqualified for it. There's no way to cover that up. If you're applying to jobs that you've done, then you shouldn't be overqualified for them. Now, if you want to take a step back, and I know Russ won't mind me using him as a reference, Russ was the president of a global communications company. He wants to be a vice president level because he was sick of managing up and not pouring into his people. So he's going to look overqualified on a lot of his things, but he needs to make sure in the interview process that he's discussing what his passions are. He's passionate about coaching people and leading teams. In your case, Christine, let's just have a conversation because I'm not quite sure your background. There's lots of ways that you can manipulate your resume to remove things from 10 years ago, but sometimes if it's not done correctly, it looks like you're covering stuff up pretty obviously, meaning maybe you have different dates on there, but all of a sudden you just have high school diploma and there's no date, and that's okay. But truthfully, if you're or college or MBA, and there's no dates, and that's okay. But honestly, I could probably figure some things out by just looking on LinkedIn and looking at stuff too. So the day of trying to use our resume to hide stuff is less available than ever because everyone's on Facebook, everyone's on LinkedIn, and my first step as a recruiter is to go on those social media platforms and do some background checks before I even pick up the phone and call you. So thank you everyone for watching. Thanks for participating. I really enjoyed today's show. I hope you did too. If you did like it, please click the like button. If you do think it was valuable, I would be so blessed if you would just, and honored if you'd share it and say, hey, listen to this guy, because I do help people with resume writing. I do help people with coaching. Oops, sorry, Christine. Thanks again, though. I do all of those things, and the only way I can do it is by building up people on here to see what I can do and to help talk to them, and then that way I can help more people. My goal this month, I'm doing a 30 for 30 this month. I'm trying to give 30 free resume consults to people, and they may never become clients, and my resume consults are truly tip harvesting consults, which end with the discussion if you want to partner together. But they're all about me looking at your resume and saying, here's what I would do to make it better. If you think you can do it on your own, then God bless, go hit it. If you don't, then let's partner together. But I promise you, it'll be the best 15 minutes of your month if you're currently looking for a job. So with that, have a wonderful week. I hope you're doing well. Remember, check out my YouTube channel, look at me on Instagram, do all those things. Have a great week, and I hope to see you next week, and I hope to help show you how to get the job. See you next time. Bye.